When Ten Hag was appointed in 2022, it was this time of year that it was all but confirmed. It was the March/April international break, and then it was properly confirmed later in the April. If anything's to happen regarding a manager outside of Carrick, I would expect that we're going to hear things in the next few days. The first story that's come up this week is that United are going to be talking to De Zerbi this week. I won't do a big profile of him, but I have looked into his career further than Brighton and Marseille, which is what I knew about. And I would say it's relatively underwhelming. It's decent, but it's underwhelming. And if you believe Andy Mitten, he was offered the job when Ten Hag was rumoured to be on the verge of the sack around the FA Cup final 2 years ago. And I don't understand why, looking at his body of work, he would be the chosen one by Ineos as their first managerial appointment. The thing that jumps off the page is his time at Brighton, where in his first season he finished 6th and reached the FA Cup semi-final, where we beat Brighton on penalties. We were very lucky that day. That's a good achievement, but it's not groundbreaking. Graham Potter did something similar with Brighton, looked a really top manager while he was there. The fellow that's in there now looks a really good manager. It's a superb structure at Brighton. So it's not groundbreaking. Having left there, my question would be, turning down the United job, my two questions would be, when he turned down our job, who else was banging on his door? Did Barcelona want him? That was when Klopp left, so did Liverpool try and get him? No. Did City put strong connections out there for him to replace Guardiola eventually? No. Did Arsenal bin off Arteta to get him? No. He went to Marseille. Second question would be, what's he done since? He's been at Marseille for roughly a season and a half. Marseille are probably the second best and second biggest club in France, and they finished second. So it's about right, it's par for course, but again, it's not groundbreaking. And that's his career. He was with Sassuolo, who were a lower end Italian club, quite a small Italian club. Just them being in Serie A is an achievement, but they've always had a bit of a rep for punching above their weight. Before he got there, they were sort of mid-table. He finished 11th and then he finished 8th and 8th again. Good effort again. Groundbreaking? Probably not. You look at some of the other names that are being mentioned. Nagelsmann, for example, was with Hoffenheim. He got Hoffenheim in the Champions League. Now, if De Zerbi gets Sassuolo into Europe, you've got a conversation on your hands. Glasner wins the FA Cup with Crystal Palace, doesn't just get to the semi-final, wins it with Crystal Palace. If De Zerbi wins the FA Cup with Brighton, again, you've got a different story on your hands. If he does really well in Europe with Brighton, you've got a different story on your hands. Glasner won a European competition with Eintracht Frankfurt. Not saying we should get Glasner, by the way, I'm just saying he's one of the names that have been mentioned. So is Nagelsmann. You look at their body of work and their achievements, some of that is somewhat groundbreaking. I don't think De Zerbi's done anything that's groundbreaking. And the other weird thing with this is that he left both Brighton and Marseille citing differences with the board. And United clearly want a manager who they can control and who doesn't have the autonomy that we're used to as United fans. We're used to the manager having that autonomy. Ineos don't want that. So if you're going to renegade on that, climb down from it, I understand why you do that for an Ancelotti. I understand why you do that for maybe a Tuchel. I'm not sold on Tuchel, and I certainly understand why you do it for an Enrique. I don't understand why you do it for Roberto De Zerbi. Don't get it. Seems that Ineos, despite apparently now being a data-driven club, get an idea in their head and it just becomes a preoccupation with them. So I would be hugely underwhelmed if Roberto De Zerbi was our manager. It's Carrick. You know, it is. It's Carrick all day long. They won't say it out loud because they don't want a repeat of what happened with Solskjaer. But unless this completely implodes, I think they know. 80% I think they are that it's going to be Carrick. I think behind closed doors within the club, they're 80% sure it's Carrick. Maybe even higher. they're probably going to keep in touch with certain managers and sound a few managers out because that's sensible, but I'm convinced it'll be Carrick. And I can't be a hypocrite. When Carrick came in, I said, if he gets us into Europe, not the Champions League necessarily, Europe, I think he'll get the job. I also said, I think that'd be about right from where we were. It's easy to forget that in January, the season was on the verge of just absolutely nosediving. And now an interim comes in, wins a few games, we get used to winning, and I am massively guilty of this. Start thinking, we're not playing very good football though. We don't seem to have a style of play, a bit underwhelming, which all is true, but his form over 10 games since he came in, or United's form, is top of the form league. Over 10 games, that's a decent cross-section of teams you play against. So it's not to be sniffed at, but that's an interim. I qualified what I said about Carrick getting the job if he got us into Europe with saying a club with better owners wouldn't necessarily do that. They might have him in the conversation, but I'm not sure they'd just automatically do it. United will automatically do it because it's easy and it's cheap. And I think he fits what they want. But when has it ever really worked with an interim? Hansi Flick is one where it worked longer term. Different animal though, being in the German league and being at the best club. And he's ended up being a really good manager after having come in as an interim. Chelsea had Di Matteo. Obviously, when he was an interim, it was incredible, but failed miserably the next season. And the only other example I can think of is ourselves with Solskjaer. First, it's 2 full seasons in charge. We finished 3rd and 2nd. So, argue amongst yourselves about Solskjaer. I think it was always limited. It always had its limitations, but league position wise, it's the most consistent we've been. It's the highest we've finished in 2 seasons in a row in 12 years. And Carrick was part of that. I see some people sort of saying, it'd be interesting to see what Carrick's like with a full summer of recruitment and with different players, that he might be a little bit more entertaining. I don't think it will. I think that what we see now is what we're going to see moving forward with Carrick. He was part of the coaching team with Solskjaer, and what I see in front of me is it's a perfect hybrid of Solskjaer and Southgate football. Steve Holland brings the Southgate, Carrick brings the Solskjaer, and that's what you're going to see. That's the way that we're going to play. If you get enough really good players in the summer, what that means is you're going to have more moments than you're having now, and hopefully you're going to have more success than you're having now. But I don't think that stylistically will be any different. You just got better players, hopefully. Short term, everything in the garden's rosy short term. It ended up being a really good weekend for us. Despite dropping points ourselves at Bournemouth, we're now further clear of 5th and 6th because both Chelsea and Liverpool lost. Villa won, but I'm not worried about if we drop to 4th because top 4 will guarantee you Champions League. 5th's probably going to be enough. So the most important thing is staying in that top 4 to guarantee it. If you win your home games, draw your away games, you might have the odd defeat here or there. You're going to be fine from the position that we're in. All of that's golden. The coaching team, Carrick himself as an interim, has done a stand-up job. Short term, incredible really, because I didn't think for a second we'd be in the Champions League this season. When Amorim was in charge, no way. And it's easy to forget that. It's easy to lose that perspective. And some people will disagree and say they did think we were going to get the Champions League. But for me, I've got to own it. I didn't think for a second we'd be in the Champions League in January when Amorim left. And Fletcher said it after the Brighton game and got knocked out of the FA Cup. He said, these players have got to have a good long hard look at themselves because the objective we've got this season is Champions League. And I thought, that's a bold statement to make. We haven't got a manager. We're not going to spend any money in January. We haven't got a midfield. So we finished 15th last season, which we should never do, by the way. That should never be a barometer. But I think we're going to finish either 3rd, 4th, or 5th, or even worst case scenario 6th. But let's say 3rd, 4th or 5th, that means you're finishing 12, 11 or 10 places higher than the previous season, albeit that season was an abomination. That's some going. You know, it really is. But my concern moving forward is, can we provide whoever the manager is with enough players to meet the demands of next season, which are going to be very different to the demands of this season? That's my concern. And it's a World Cup summer with a board that can only do one deal at a time. They've got this absurd notion that they wanted to fix one area of the field last year. This year they're trying to fix the midfield. Sorry, one area of the pitch last year. This year, so that was the attack. This is the midfield. Football doesn't fit in boxes like that. Sometimes you have to think outside of the box and just get what you need. We've been linked to Bruno G from Newcastle. I really like him. Every time I watch Newcastle play, mainly against us, he didn't play against us last time, I don't think. I just think he's mint. All action, old school box to box midfield player, puts his foot in to score a goal, really classy on the ball. He's got everything as a midfield player. 29, don't mind that. Well, he's 28 at the moment, but he's not far off 29. I don't mind that at all. These days in football, that's not old. You can play for another 3 or 4 years comfortably at the top level. Would he improve our midfield? Good God, yes, he would improve our midfield. 100% he would. 2 concerns. 1, not even sure it's going to happen. 2, I can just see this lot going, ladies and gentlemen, Bruno G. That's our main signing for the summer. Queue at the door to pat us on the back and tell us how great we are. That it would be a really good signing, but we need a top-class defensive midfield player. And I just think they'll do this and they'll go, well done everyone. Now we'll go and get home bargains, hold a midfield player or promote one up through the academy or buy a young one or whatever. Unless they're changing the dynamic of the midfield, and we're basically playing without a holding midfield player, the priority, as good as Giménez is not that type of player. Now maybe it's just an opportunity that's come up and they think, well, it's not our first priority, but it's come up now, so we're going to get it. Cool. I don't trust them. Last season, we got Cunha. I really like Cunha. Brilliant signing, in my opinion. Still loads to come from him. And then spent 7 weeks working on Mbeumo. The videos are on here from well, not a year ago, whatever it is, 9 months ago, where I said, I like Mbeumo, but I'm not sure why you need him and Cunha. At that point, obviously, we ended up getting Seshko, but we far greater need was a striker. By the time we got to getting a striker, a lot of the ones we wanted had gone because we'd focused so much on Mbeumo. We desperately needed a midfielder, and although we got Sen Lamens, we needed a goalkeeper. You could argue others as well, but we certainly needed those 3 different positions filling. But it's this tunnel vision of, no, we're going to get Bryan Mbeumo. I like Bryan Mbeumo. Do we really need him? Probably not. We need Bruno G and another in midfield, at least one other, of a different type of profile. And I just worry that if we did get him, I'm not even sure we will, but if we did get him, they're all going to pat themselves on the back and think they've done a stand-up job and then spend a fair amount of time picking their arse like they often do. So I'll reserve judgment. If we sign him and we get another one next to him, happy days. And we need more than that, but that'd be a hell of a start to summer recruitment. Right, that's about it for today. I think that covers most things. I will do another video on Friday. No game for United, obviously, at the weekend. Might do a Saturday social with a beer, as I like to do. And of course, if anything significant happens in the meantime, I'll speak to you good people again then. All the best, up the Reds, Glazers out.